We're going to, for those of you joining us on Zoom, I will be projecting the workbook on my screen so that you'll be able to see, and you'll want pen and paper with you because we're going to take a lot of notes. For medicinal purposes only, yes. Right, exactly. Yes. Yep. Me and Amazon, thank you. Okay, everybody have a workbook? So greetings again. Thanks so much for spending the next 55 minutes or so with me. I love to talk about what we don't talk about. Thank you very much. And one of those things that we don't talk about are our feelings. It's, well, many of us. Everything is as it should be. Everything is in divine order. Don't worry, be happy. And all of those things are the truth. But the fact is, life happens. Life happens in ways that we wouldn't have planned for or expected or wanted. And what happens when we get into the muddy water? So we're going to talk this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you are, about the experience of the muddy water, not staying in it and being stuck in it, but allowing ourselves to process through. Many of you know my story, and I'll share it really quickly. My husband made his transition. We don't like to say died, but my husband died in the airport in Houston just over 3 years ago on the way home from this conference. He had been taking chemotherapy treatments for colorectal cancer and had been getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and I think it was probably a blood clot from the flight, but it was an amazing experience. And if you've ever had that experience of someone dying in a state where they don't live, there are all sorts of wonderful things and hoops to jump through in addition to that. And so that happened. And the next morning I woke up in my hotel room alone, and he wasn't coming home with me. So that experience, and if you've had the experience of the death of a dear one, whether it was a spouse or a child or a parent or someone close to you, you know that it's an amazing experience. So I collected the luggage, flew home, got into the house, sat down, and started to grieve. We'd been together for 33 years. And my ego said, no, everything is in divine order. Everything is as it should be. It's all good. He's in a better place. And all of those other wonderful things that so often we tell ourselves. And the purpose of my workshop and the purpose of this part of my ministry is to allow us to recognize, yes, he's on his spiritual path. Yes, everything's in divine order. All that stuff is the truth. But the fact is, my heart is breaking. And so many of you in this very room, and I'll bet on the Zoom as well, have had this experience of this thing called life and this thing called death. And whether it's physical death, whether it's the loss of a job, a change in a relationship, any of those life experiences that aren't what we wanted them to be, it's so important that we give ourselves the opportunity to feel what we feel so we can move forward. So the search for inner peace, being at home in the muddy water so that we can keep moving through the muddy water. So I invite you, those of you in this very room, we're going to be really interactive. So I invite you, I'll ask you questions, and I invite you to share. I invite you to take a lot of notes in your workbook. What happened here?
We turned off your share. We should leave it off. Don't share your screen.
Leave it off? Okay.
You're fabulous, and they're just seeing your paper.
Well, I want them to see my paper.
You can read your paper to them. They're good.
All right. They are incredibly smart people. Fine. Sorry, guys. Okay, we're going to do this a different way. Okay, so being at home in the muddy water, what do you define as, or how do you define home? What does home mean to you? Presence. Who else? Grounded. Safety. Sanctuary. All is well. Love. Comfort. A haven. Serenity. Belonging. So that place where you go and you're comfortable. So then, what is the mud? Everything else, right. So the change in a relationship, the loss of a job, the death of someone, the missing out on something. And for many of us, and probably all of us, through this last 18 months or so, we've missed out on graduations, births, memorial services, all sorts of wonderful things that we used to be able to do that we can't do, haven't been able to do. And it's important that we recognize that there might be a little feeling of grief and loss there. And not only is that okay, but it's so important in this experience of being human. So then, what is trauma? Any thoughts? Turmoil. Emotional bruise.
Being knocked off our center.
Being knocked off our center. Not having our needs met. Yes.
Stuckness of the trauma in the body, of the challenge of the mud.
Being stuck in the mud in the body. Yes. I'm sorry. Crisis. I found a great quote about trauma. Thank you. I was trying to do that. Yeah. Oh, that's even better. Thank you. Okay. Experiences that are hurtful and damaging to your sense of self. So, I might get a little emotional through this, so I appreciate your indulgence. My husband was Jerry, and I was Jerry squared. And I'm not Jerry squared anymore. And if you've there's a great line from one of the episodes of The Golden Girls. Blanche's father has died, and she says, "I'm nobody's little girl anymore." And if you've had that experience of the death of a parent, or the death of a spouse, or the death of a child, I'm not so-and-so's mother or father anymore. There is that trauma, there is that experience and great sense of loss. See, because we're enlightened, we're spiritual beings, we're all of those things, but we're also spiritual beings having a human experience. And I love this quote. at the bottom of the first page. Hold on just a second while I get there. From the Buddha, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. How important it is for us to allow ourselves to keep chopping wood and carrying water. It's part of the richness. The bitter and the sweet is part of the richness of this thing called life. And we get there. We do get there. Somebody said the only way out is through. So that's what we're talking about today. So the next page, you might have heard the term toxic positivity. And with all due respect to our dear audiovisual team in the back room, one of the songs they were singing before, one of the songs they played before we got into the room was "Don't Worry, Be Happy." And that's wonderful. But what if I'm worried? Because if you've had the experience like I did, you know, what in the bomb do I do now? What do I do? Who do I call? Oh my God. You have those thoughts. So don't worry, be happy. Good vibes only. And you can write these down in your workbook if you like. Good vibes only. Never give up. But what if the job that you have, you need to give up? What if it's a toxic experience? What if it no longer serves you? What if it's you're allowing it to make you physically ill? Maybe we need to give up or give up that relationship and move forward. So don't worry, be happy, good vibes only, never give up, see the good in everything. Stop being so negative. And they did the best they could. The question was, did they? That's a really good question, and that segues to my workshop on forgiveness, which is a whole nother conversation. They may very well have done the best they could, but it still royally either honked me off or really broke my heart.
Can I add one?
Yes.
At least you only fill in the blank. At least you're still, the words at least.
Oh, thank you. The minimizing of our grief. We did an amazing workshop. My first virtual workshop about the muddy water was with my dear friends at the Center for Conscious Living in New Jersey. I was in a hotel room in Lexington, Kentucky, and we're doing a workshop with my friends in New Jersey. Technology is a wonderful thing. And one of the things that came up in the conversation was someone died, and the person said, "Well, I'm so sorry, my cat died last week." So spouse, cat, tomato, and not to say that both of them aren't heartbreaking, but how important it is for when someone has this experience for us to say, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," period. Because we are not taught. We human beings, for the most part, do not do well in dealing with these subjects. We want to make you, let me make you feel better, rather than saying, sometimes that's what we need to say. I'm so sorry, I'm here for you, or nothing. Toxic positivity, and number 5, spiritual bypass. This was first coined by psychologist John Wellwood, and it is referred to avoidance in holy drag. So, anger avoidance. One of the things I like to talk about, and I always talk about when I do a memorial service, is the need for forgiveness. of the person who died. I am still angry. It's been 3 years, and he was a nurse, and he was a registered nurse, and so didn't take care of himself, and I'm angry. Jerry, if you're with us in this very room today, I love you, and I'm still angry. We have to allow that. We have to allow that. So anger avoidance, devaluation of our feelings. Well, it's been 3 years. You should be over that by now. That word, that S word, if we could take it out of the dictionary and burn it and send it into space, so we stop shoulding and shouldn'ting on ourselves. Grief is just the most amazing experience, and you know, if you've been through it, you know. And it takes as long as it takes. And that's, could be 2 months, could be 6 months, could be 5 years. We keep walking, we keep moving, we keep making our way through the mud, but we also allow ourselves to experience this. So anger avoidance, devaluation of our feelings, emotional numbing and repression. So I'm okay. I'm okay. Overemphasis on the positive. So again, going back to the toxic positivity. Judgment of others for their negative feelings, because as we know in this teaching, whatever, and we sang about this last night, I'm pretty sure, that you're a reflection of me, so whatever it is that's bugging the soup out of me about you is something that I don't want to look at in myself. Spiritual bypass. The problem, and I'm quoting in the workbook, the problem that arises with spiritual bypassing is that it takes us further from spirituality. Spirituality is learning and practicing how to fully embody all experiences. This includes the painful ones. As long as we're prematurely blocking our experiences, we will be limited in our ability to meet life with wisdom and compassion. So what do we say? And we talked about this before, and just as review, we're not, so many of us are not built for this. And if we're ministers or practitioners, do we try and make our beloved client, friend, feel better with toxic positivity? Or do we allow themselves to feel that? So important that we allow, as we allow others to do that, as we allow ourselves to do that, we allow others to do that as well. They're in a better place. There is someone better out there for you. If you've had a change in a relationship, and I use the word, notice that I use the term change in relationship. Mary Morrissey says that relationships never end, because where is the relationship? It's in our minds and our hearts. So it doesn't end, it just changes. So there's somebody better out there for you. Look for the blessing and be grateful. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. About 3 months after Jerry died, one of the volunteers at the homeless shelter that I was coordinating, she came in on a Wednesday morning, and I was sharing what had happened, and she said, "You should be so incredibly grateful." And I feel my fist clenching like I want to punch her in the nose for the 33 years that you had, because so many people don't have that. And after my blood pressure started to return to normal, as I stepped back out of judgment and felt that wholeheartedly, I said yes. So I wanted more. You wanted more. You wanted more. You wanted more. But we can also be grateful for what we had and the experiences that we had. And please don't tell me it's all good, because it is all good, but I don't want to hear that right now. So what happens if we don't? If we don't feel these feelings, if we just, and this is the top of page 3, if we don't allow ourselves to feel the feelings, we can feel anger about our anger, grief about our grief, shame about our shame, suffering about our suffering, and we could be here the rest of the day and come up with more statements, but you get it. Then we start to feel guilty for feeling guilty. And so it's the toxicity grows and grows versus allowing ourselves to feel what we feel. Because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the human experience part of us needs to feel what we feel, to taste the bitter along with the sweet, recognizing that it's part of this thing called life. In your workbook on the next page, there are 3 buckets. And those of you with us on Zoom, I'll just invite you to make notes, but imagine. So there are 3 buckets. The first bucket in the upper left, I'd like for you to label that as good. And then write down on and around the bucket, good emotions. What are good emotions? I'll give you just a minute, and then we'll ask for suggestions. What are good emotions? Okay, who has a good emotion they'd like to share? Compassion. Empathy. Love. Joy. Peace. Serenity. Harmony. Happiness. Yes, Michelle?
Fury.
Not yet. Okay, well, you're you're cheating, but that's okay. Fury, we'll go with that. Yes, okay. What else? Grace. Desires.
Anger is a good emotion. I've used it that way. It depends on the person experiencing how they want to label it.
Eleanor, please don't tell the end of the story. But your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. Okay. Yes, George.
Equanimity.
Equanimity. Okay. Big word at this hour of the morning. Thank you for that. So these are our good emotions, so that the bucket next to the good bucket, I'd like for you to label that as bad. And then write down some bad emotions. So, and you can stir yourself up a little about how long it took you to get here, about the delayed airline flight, about the guy in the left-hand lane doing 50 miles an hour on the turnpike, just whatever lights you up. Okay, what are some bad emotions? Yes. Hate. Resentment. Frustration. Fear. Anger. Envy. Shame, fear, worry, sorrow, confusion, jealousy, okay, pity, instability, impatience, irritation, annoyance. I know, right? So now what I'd like you to do is so the third bucket down below, I'd like for you to label that as emotions. Now draw two lines like a pipe going from the good bucket down to the emotions bucket. And now draw another two lines, another pipe from the bad bucket down to the emotions bucket. So rather than labeling as good, rather than labeling as bad, it just is. I'm feeling joy today. I'm feeling happiness today. I'm feeling anger today. I'm feeling fear today. I'm feeling judgment today. 'Tis neither good nor bad. Wasn't it Shakespeare? 'Tis neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. So what if we just allowed ourselves to recognize this thing called grief, these things called grief and anger and loss and all the rest of that, because we feel it, so we can heal it. So those are your bucket lists. So the stages of grief, these are Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, plus one from Jerry Troyer. So starting with, so this is number 9 in your workbook, starting with denial. And if you've had this experience, and I would bet you've had this experience in one way or another, we start with, no, he's gonna walk through the door. And 3 years later, I better not do that until I ask him. Have you had that? Or I gotta call my mother about, many of us had lost our parents during the COVID. I know several of you did. My mother died in January. And so I got to call my mother and tell her about. So the first, denial. The second is anger, like we talked about. This just really, and from last week or last month or 10 years ago, we could still be angry that they left us. Denial, anger, bargaining. God, if you'll just somehow not do this or reverse this or something. Then some depression. And then acceptance. And my addition is sadness. That I get it, I've accepted it, but we won't ever, again, and you get to fill in the blank, or I won't see them, or they won't see me, or whatever it is. So that number 6, that sadness, that things are different now. Things are different now. We talked about this before, but how important it is when we're working with or talking with someone in our lives that we allow them this experience. And we allow ourselves this experience. Because if we don't, who ate the whole package of lemon Oreos? Who ate the whole box of Tasty Cakes? Those of you from the Mid-Atlantic District. Where is the rest of the Ben and Jerry's? What happened to that pizza?
Where's the homemade vanilla?
The homemade
Homemade vanilla ice cream.
Oh, dang. I know where that went, right? Yep. Or, and I know that I'm in anger and judgment when the thought I have begins with, for the love of God. For the love of God, didn't you know that you needed your Costco card? So instead of being parked crossways in the entrance trying to find your Costco card, couldn't you have gotten that out before? It's an extra 10 seconds out of my life. But if we don't allow ourselves to feel what we feel, this anger, this loss, this grief can come out in surprising and wonderful ways, in however works for you.
Which it will do anyway.
Which it will do anyway, but
That's how
yes,
random emotions.
yes,
That's
yeah, that's certainly true. But
I have a question.
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, please.
Are lemon Oreos an actual thing?
Lemon Oreos are a religious experience, and I know religious experiences. Yes, you gotta. It's just, oh my God. Yep. Can't help it. It's just one of those things. So they're doing 50 miles an hour in the left-hand lane, talking on the phone on the expressway or the turnpike or wherever you are, or the toll road, and you're late getting to work. Where does road rage come from? And we don't know this for sure, but very often, isn't it? Couldn't it be anger, suppressed grief, suppressed rage that we didn't allow ourselves to feel, and it comes out in that poor person that was just talking on the phone? I know they shouldn't be, but they are. So what had this number 10, irritability and anger, fear of getting into the next experience because we're worried that it's going to happen again. For those that have lost, if you've lost a pet, a beloved pet, they're a family member. They absolutely are. Can we allow ourselves to go get the next bunny, or the next golden retriever, or the next iguana, or whatever it is, or cat, or whatever it is? Or do we keep ourselves limited for fear that this is going to happen again? Do we allow ourselves to step into the next wonderful relationship? Or do we hold back? And if it wasn't necessarily a death, but it was the ending of a relationship not in the way we would have chosen, can we put ourselves out there to look for the good that the universe has for us? Or do we stay huddled down for fear that it's going to happen again? Food, alcohol, shopping, any overindulging in physical activity and weight loss, anything that's addictive, self-harming behaviors. So anything that's over the top in what's really best for us. No, absolutely not. Try to keep it to one package a week, but, do what you need to do, yes. Also, sitting on the couch, that low-grade depression. And until fairly recently, I was busy with stuff, but I was also busy. I know the lineup going from Bar Rescue to Mom to 2.5 Men on Paramount during the week in the afternoon. And the still small voice finally said, "Rise and be healed." Not exactly, but it said, okay, you can still feel, and it's so important that we do that and take care of ourselves, but then when we're ready, get up and keep moving, because if we're still here, if I'm still here, and we are and I am, there's more work to do. There's more wonderful experiences to experience. And then postponing joy. Yep, I'll do that. I'll get to that. So important for us to recognize what we're feeling, to process this so that we can move forward. Yes, please.
I was just thinking about this. I was having a conversation with someone at a party. I didn't know this person. And the subject of loss came up because I lost my husband not that long ago. And this person started telling me about losing, I think it was his daughter, to a car accident. And the grief was so profound and present. And my heart just ached for this man. And I said, how long ago did that happen? And he said, 16 years ago. And that's what happens when you don't process the grief. It just stays with you. If you don't let yourself feel it and do everything Jerry's talking about, it just stays.
Yes.
I don't think it just stays. I think it multiplies and it festers and it grows and it wraps its tentacles around your heart.
And very possibly makes us physically ill. Yes, yep, absolutely. Thank you both. Yes, Paul.
I found myself, my wife passed away 5 years ago, and I found myself, and I was proud of myself that I caught it, but I found myself inserting myself in my kids' lives. That I wanted to do what they were doing. And I've got a number of their friends like me, enjoy me, I'm Papa Hoyt, but I was, well, why am I not invited to that? And going, can I go? Can I? And I finally had to stop myself and go, wait a minute, that's their life, that's not your life. So it was I caught myself.
Yes, yeah, good point. Thank you for that. Yes.
There can also be grief that's much more complicated, that's connected to many other issues, which takes a deeper dive.
Absolutely. Things from childhood. If you were adopted, if you were abused, so many other things. But if we allow ourselves to look back, sometimes we can look at those limiting behaviors that we've done over time to see that maybe that belief, that shame, that cause was the cause for those behaviors or those experiences in our lives. So this is absolutely a complicated issue, but we won't get there if we don't take the first step. Yep, so thank you for that. Anybody else, comments, questions? Marco, yes.
Because coming out of a season of tremendous loss in my life, I'm really in the grips of that early stages of grief, and I totally relate with this. And it's like, the book on Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I've noticed that is not here, but I felt that maybe people aren't willing about this thing forward. Emotional waiting. Boy, there are times that I don't know where it fits in, but there's times that you feel so incredibly numb that you don't feel grief or joy. You're just in limbo.
That's the void. So would you give us a paraphrase version of that again? Sorry.
Sure. No, my question is that in the stages that have been identified, I don't see anything about void or vacancy or hollowness, the absence of emotion because you feel numb. And, that's something I would like to explore because I think it's relevant and there may be an opportunity there as well.
Absolutely. I think I'm heading out to the workshop. Thank you for that. Yes, yeah. And I'm gonna go in a little bit of a different direction with that, but your point is well taken. But I think that's that low grade depression, just Nothing. Just apathy, just, I don't want to do anything. I'm not even laughing at 2.5 Men. I'm just, there's just nothing there. Yes, Marco, thank you for that. Yes.
I think,
Thank you,
can't
Bob.
we call that the trauma response, fight, flight, frozen? The frozenness of, I can't believe this just happened. I just, that defense of the body that says too much and just step into the frozen
Yes.
state.
Yep, that really good point. Thank you. Yes, Michael.
So I sort of broke the mold in my family because my family is pretty stoic and, you know, of proud roots where you don't air your laundry out. And you sort of live in that stage 1 of denial. You know, I shattered that mold because I'm more of an extrovert and I do air that. But I see it because we've been through loss quite a bit lately, not only with our son, but both my mother and my father. And when I check in with my oldest brother, he's just continuously in the stage 1, like, I'm all right, I'm good, I'm all right, I'm good. And I just think that's just of the mold that he is. Like, he's not really willing to go any deeper or any further in expression of what it is that he's experiencing.
And of course, and thank you for that. We all do this in different ways, but and may he feel it when he feels it so that it doesn't come back to him 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. Yes, yep. Thank you for that. Yes, Eleanor.
All right, people. You know we're all ministers of New Thought, or close to. You know we are God, individualized, having a human experience. This has been drummed into us. Why don't we shift in consciousness to where we belong? Do ye not know that ye are gods, says Jesus? And I say, do ye not know that you are, every one of you, healers? You are made in the image of God. Everywhere you go, you radiate the consciousness of health, mental or physical. These things are personal that you're sharing, and they're good and valid, but I can't find anyone here that talks about the time that you realize you actually get it. I am God. And when you get to that place, the rest just melts away. And I just have to say that. I know there are arguments. This is what I came to say because I've been feeling alone. Except for Charles. He and I have, and Sherry, have talked about the shift we must make. After we acknowledge everything that's going on, it's true and valid, but rise above it. Right with it.
When you're, and you have a workshop on Thursday that you're going to get to talk more about this. So thank you.
So if you want to deny me, come. That'll be the place.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Yes, Paul.
I did that. And the best statement that anybody ever made to me, I was helping facilitate practitioner training. And I said to the practitioners, I said, I get that I'm an individualized expression of God, and yet I'm also a human being, and I've got this grief.
Yes.
Now, how do I meld the two? How do I bring them together? And she, wait. And she said, incrementally. Mm-hmm. Incrementally, because there were days when, God, I was down on the floor just sobbing, just couldn't do anything else. I couldn't do anything else in that moment. And then I picked myself up and I went, okay, what is there to do? I know that God is my source. I know that I'm okay. I know that God is with me. But man, in those times, I couldn't do anything else. It was not possible.
Yep. So the perfect segue. So I travel with my magic wand. Because how often do we have the magic wand system of grief? Oh, okay, they died. I'm over it. Wave the magic wand, I'll move on. Wave the magic wand, I'll move on. Guess what? It doesn't work that way. And even if it looks like it works that way, again, what happened to the lemon Oreos? Again, why am I getting so upset about this? Again, this laptop will not connect to the internet and I'm getting ready to throw it across the room. Why am I so angry? Because there's something there for me to look at, to feel, to heal. One of my favorite authors, Debbie Ford, wrote, "What we can't be with won't let us be." So we allow ourselves to be with these emotions, with this anger, with this grief, with this sense of loss, so that we can remember the truth of who we are and move forward. Yes?
You're probably fixing to say this, and I'm ahead of myself, but I think maybe the hardest thing about grief is that it's not linear. It's not linear. We don't step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We step 1, step 7, step 1, step 5, step 1, step 2, step 1, step 5, and until finally it all blends in and we're done. But I think that's awfully important.
Thank you for reminding us of that, and I think you're absolutely right. And so the steps 1 through 5 or 6, that's really lovely, except that if you've been through it, you know that you get to step 4, and then, oh, holy crap, I'm back at step 1 again, and I'm doing really well, and then, oh my God, I'm back at step 2 again. So, right, it's not etched in concrete, it's not linear, and everyone does it and feels it differently.
I became a certified death doula this year and also took a lot of Martha's classes. And what I think is most significant is that when it comes to grief, we integrate the loss into our lives. You never get over. It's a broken heart. Time does not heal all wounds. So that word integrate is critically important when it comes to grieving.
Thank you. So my question, number 11, but what if we don't feel anything? Or what if we feel relief? Immediately followed by guilt. That my husband had lost probably 75 pounds and was very weak, yes. And if you've been with someone with a lingering illness, you know, watching them deteriorate is almost as bad as the actual event. And a dear friend of mine his partner had been ill for years and years and years and finally died. And very soon after that, he found someone new. And people in his life said, "No, that's wrong. You're supposed to grieve for..." And the truth is, if it's been a lingering illness, you begin grieving. You begin grieving as soon as you go to oncology because you know what that word means. So it's a process, not an event. And very often it starts long before the death. So we might feel relief and then guilt because we feel relief. we might feel nothing, especially if it was a parent that you didn't really have a close relationship with. My mother was 89 and in a board and care with absolutely no quality of life whatsoever. Her mind was still pretty good, and that was pretty much it. And so, thank God, COVID came into the board and care, and she was able to go on to frolic in her next experience. Am I grieving? No question. Am I sad? Yes. Am I grateful and joyful? Absolutely. So if we take away the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and listen to our hearts and just allow ourselves to experience this experience. So if you are feeling grief, and we've got 5 minutes left, I have just a couple of ideas on how to process. Starting with feel what you feel. No shoulds, no shouldn'ts, no rules, no regulations. Stay busy. Or not. Because I had people tell me, I'm so glad you're staying busy, it's really important, blah, blah, blah. And then you go home at night to the quiet house and it's oof across the face versus staying busy, but also giving yourself that quiet, nurturing time to take care of yourself and feel what you feel. Cry it out. Don't tell anybody, but I get kind of emotional and can have a few tears every once in a while. And I know, right? And my intention is to make you get teared up a little bit as well. And when I speak on Sundays, if I'm not making somebody cry, I'm not doing my job. Because it's the emotion of us, it's the richness, it's the lusciousness of life that we allow ourselves to feel that. Avoid self-medicating, so alcohol, drugs, food, shopping, lemon Oreos up to a point. Write it down. If journaling resonates for you, that's a great opportunity to feel the grief, to feel the anger, to feel all there is that's in there to help you process it through. Rely on your faith, obviously. We're spiritual beings, we're ministers and practitioners, and that's really lovely, but how wonderful it is when we finally allow ourselves to ask for help. It's a bitter pill, and then it's an amazingly wonderful pill to know that our dear ones in our lives are there to support us just as we are there to support them. Frolic. When was the last time you frolicked? And whether that's the mountains, the ocean, the whatever, just get out there and have a little fun, whatever that means. And then just allow all of it. Allow all of it. So I need to close here really quickly. Number 13, steps for working toward acceptance, spells coal, starting with curiosity. What do I believe about this? What am I being led to do? Is there a way that I can change the story on this? Openness. Again, is there another way to look at this? Acceptance. And again, repeating, what we can't be with won't let us be. And then love. So curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love for ourselves and taking care of ourselves and listening to what our heart and our inner wisdom is telling us, to take care of ourselves in the best way possible, to feel what we need to feel, to allow. No matter what the experience was, all these practices can help us keep moving. Thank you. Thank you. So for the benefit of, I want to just close really quickly. This is just one of my most favorite writings. It's in your handbook, and I want to share this with you as we prepare to go. And this is The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Thank you so much for opening your hearts and spending time with me. Folks on Zoom, thank you so much for being with us.